As well to watch that classic Browns-Ravens game, and we saw Lamar Jackson back in what looked to be MVP form at moments. For most of the season, Lamar hasn't looked like the reigning MVP. Now, after watching last evening, do you think that changes, or do you think you can attribute some question to why he has struggled this season like he didn't last year?
Yeah, the changes I see in him is not necessarily what he's doing, but what other teams are doing, Peter. And what we're seeing this year from defenses is a lot more sub-defenses. What I mean is nickel and dime defenses backed up with man-to-man coverage, which is different from what teams were doing last year. So he's need to make an adjustment. I think it's interesting is when you have such a rare season like he did last year, it ratchets up not only the standard, but the expectations. And for anyone to play back-to-back seasons like he, and improve or be what he was last year, I think is not, it's not possible. So I think really what you're seeing is the change in how people are defending him. The other big thing that's affecting him is the offensive line. He lost an 8-time Pro Bowler in Marshall Yanda. Ronnie Staley, the left tackle, gets injured. They've had to shuffle this line around. So he's still adjusting to things on the fly. Oh, and by the way, he had COVID in the middle of this season. So I think it's important to note that even though he's not what he was last year, he is still a very good player. And last night showed that to us, Peter.
Speaking of very good players, let's talk about another young superstar at the quarterback position. Yesterday, we were talking about how impressed we were with Josh Allen and the Bills. And you have history with Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll from your time together in New England and Kansas City. So what stood out to you most about Josh Allen's development over the past year?
Initially when I talked to Brian when Josh was a rookie, Brian talked about his work ethic, his work habits, his humility, all of those things. But now what I'm seeing personally when I watch him in year 3 is this new type of confidence. He's always been a confident player in his own abilities, but he has more of what I call a mature confidence now. He's confident in his coaches. He's confident in a system that he's now been in for 3 straight years, but he's also confident with the players around him. The addition of Stephon Diggs and also having a player like Cole Beasley, a solid running game, a really strong offensive line, he just looks more comfortable and confident about his surroundings and everything around him. And again, what I call that is much more of a mature confidence, and it's showing in his play this year. And we're seeing it change and improve even every week as the competition and the pressure gets tougher.
I could say the same thing, Scott, for the guy in Green Bay. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is playing out of his mind, even by his standards. So if you're in the Packers front office, great. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback. You also have a star running back who's going to want to be paid. You have a first-round rookie quarterback who doesn't even dress for games. There's a pressure that comes with that and an urgency. So what pressure specifically come along with trying to build a team around a future Hall of Famer like Rodgers?
The pressure that comes with that, Kyle, I think is temptation. Because as a front office and a head coach, you're working together and you're trying to, it's a very, very delicate balance that you're trying to make right there. You want to win now, but you also don't want to expose the franchise and your own legacy to failure in the future. But Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur did, I think, a terrific job where the outsiders were yelling, they need more receivers, they need a tight end, they need all of these things for Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is an elite quarterback, and the difference between a good quarterback, a very good quarterback, and an elite quarterback is the fact that elite quarterbacks can take talent around them and make those other players much better, and that's what Aaron Rodgers did. So what Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur did was they did what was best for the organization now and in the future, and they did not succumb to the pressure of worrying about surrounding their Hall of Fame quarterback. They planned for the future and drafted a quarterback. A lot of people didn't think that was a good idea, but I think right now what we're seeing is what those two knew is that Aaron Rodgers was still an elite level and he was going to be able to help them win. So the temptation to me was the pressure, but knowing those guys, hey, a great saying that I absolutely love is that pressure is a privilege, and they have embraced that privilege.
and this conversation will continue, of course, until we see the rookie and what he looks like on the field and what the decisions are around that in the upcoming seasons. Now, Pioli, your NFL media takeover continues. You are crushing it, and you have a new series over at NFL.com. Behind this, I mean, in the commercial breaks, you come on, and we are enamored and always asking questions about the things that you have in the background of your setup. And on NFL.com right now, you talk about the history of the players there, featuring players from historically black colleges and universities who deserve a little extra spotlight. Who do you have for us to learn about today?
Well, today we've got Walter Payton. Everyone knows Walter Payton. This is from his rookie year, and it says rookies on the rise. And Walter Payton played at Jackson State with Jackie Slater, another gold jacket. That 1974 Jackson State team was 7-3, but it's unbelievable. From that team, 3 starters that were all SWAC, all in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Walter Payton, Robert Brazile, and Jackie Slater. What's crazy, though, is the 1974 team at Jackson State had 5 players drafted in the NFL draft, more than Ole Miss and Mississippi State combined. Of course, Jackson State is in Mississippi. And they had a 6th player by the name of Rod Phillips, who was their tight end and was an undrafted free agent and ended up playing 6 seasons at running back. So from that team at Jackson State, they had Walter Payton, another guy, Ricky Jackson, who was also drafted. He was the backup running back and shared the backfield with Walter Payton. Then they had a tight end that became a 6-year NFL running back. Again, 7 players from that team that went to the NFL, and Payton and Brazile were drafted. Robert Brazile were drafted in 75, and then the next year, 1976, Jackie Slater came along and he was drafted. Unbelievable football team and a true history of the HBCU that people really should know.
It's unbelievable. Jackie Slater, of course, played 20 years for one team, the Rams. He was the first player ever to do that in NFL history. 20 years, one team. Were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I'm just saying that's amazing. I always appreciate him kind of educating everybody on the history of HBCUs.
We love it. And now, of course, Jackie's son, Matt, one of the greats in the NFL as well. Were you there when they drafted him, Scott?
Yeah, that was my final draft at the New England Patriots in 2008. We drafted Matthew. And Matthew didn't even play on offense. Matthew was the Pac-10 special teams player of the year. He had 25 special teams tackles. He was unbelievable. And we drafted him intentionally, knowing that he had rare speed, but probably wasn't going to be a receiver. And we really thought he was going to be able to be a top special teams player. But along with being a top special teams player and probably a potential gold jacket himself, Matthew Slater is one of the finest human beings in the National Football League, and it remains a dear, dear friend.
That's awesome.
Awesome stuff. We love having you on, Scott. Thank you for dropping the knowledge, and thank you for informing the viewers and also giving your front office insights. The final few weeks of the season, we're going to be leaning on you for some of these head coaching and GM jobs and letting us know what you think and what you think is what's going to happen in the coming weeks.
That's a sharp fit, too, Pioli.
Anything.
Hey, Kyle. Kyle, it makes me
a rental.
angry you didn't tell me why I have this water bottle.
Oh, we'll get into it, believe me.